Hello and welcome to In the Back Pocket. This is the finals preview. We're just about there. It's been a big season. Next weekend it all kicks off. Daniel Hoyney, the maestro from Champion Data, joins us. Full show today. Well done.
Brownie, we roll in the big guns for the for the final series, so I'm happy to be here.
That's it. Kate McCarthy, as always.
Yeah, good to be here. Obviously, finals are all locked in now, so we know where we're headed, but should be a good final series.
And they say no Zach Tui, no Geelong, but it doesn't seem that way. They're going okay.
Yeah, they're my flag favourites for a reason. I suspect I might be the only one that's tipping them to go all the way at this table, but I like what they're doing.
All right, let's have a look at where we started at the start of the year, where we are now with the pricing. Kate, take us through a few.
Yeah, so some of the market movers, obviously, I think the big change, obviously, there, Adelaide, $26 in the pre-season. I think most of us expected them to improve, but probably not at the rate that they have. Hawthorn, I think we all said that they were a bit short at $8.50 in the pre-season, out to $17 now, and poor old Gold Coast Suns started at 41 and they're still at 41.
Solid in the market. Good value at the Gold Coast.
I argue if they beat Port Adelaide last week and they were sitting in fourth position with those 4 points given their percentage, they'd be a lot shorter than $41, but it's going to be a hard road for them to go over to Fremantle and somehow still contend for the Premiership.
A lot of things don't age well, but let's have a look at things that maybe we said at the start of the year didn't quite work out. Some of them did.
I feel like at this time of year, like I just said, you can't really rely on a whole lot. So I don't see many sort of coming up with better cases than what Brisbane have. I think the pressure on Eric doesn't quite need to be there to the levels that it is. I don't think you need to replace, obviously Joe Danaher was a key pillar, but you can change the way that you move the ball, you can change the way that you play to not rely solely on that big key that they won't have sort of in the forward line this year.
I don't understand why Sydney is such a good price at $11. So everybody's off them. What I see is a team with a new coach who they're going to get a little bit of energy out of that. But go through these names. Warner, Heaney, Goulden, Rowbottom, Florent, Blakey, all still to play their best football. When you've got those players and you play half your games at the SCG, you're going to play finals, you're going to be close to top four, and they've finished sixth, they've finished second, they've finished eighth, and they've finished second again. Brisbane did something very similar and then won the Premiership, so I do like Sydney still. Right, we had to play that one in its entirety, the Sydney one. You've disappointed yourselves, you disappointed the whole country. Dean Cox, you should be ashamed of yourself. No, just joking. Didn't work out well for me. Yours is very nice though.
Yeah, I think if they cut that, I was probably agreeing with you that I didn't think they were going to win the Premiership. I thought they'd do better than I thought, and I think better than we all thought. But let's have a look, though, at our build with our picks for the final. So what we think the ladder might look like as they go through. And to be completely honest with you, I hate this because the first four games, you could almost toss a coin and get a different outcome each time. I've gone with Adelaide losing to Collingwood in the first round and going straight through to the prelim. I think Geelong get beaten by the Lions in that first round, but go the long way anyway. I think that is the preview for the grand final. The other one that might surprise people, I couldn't pick a winner really between the Giants and the Hawks. Looked at it for a good 5 minutes, came up with the Giants, but would not be at all surprised if the Hawks got the win there.
Nice.
And Fremantle and the Gold Coast, I think Fremantle win.
Winning the flag. Zach?
Yeah, well, a similar problem to what you had, Kate. There's so many of these games are just so close and hard to split. I think the Freo Gold Coast game is the only one I feel anywhere confident about saying Freo. I think Brisbane and Geelong both have the capacity to go the long way. I have edged Adelaide in that home prelim if they beat Collingwood, which I think they will. I actually have a lot of belief in Adelaide. I think the atmosphere over there will be electrifying and I think they can get the job done. And then Hawthorn, I think, will go past the Giants, a bit like your Port Adelaide call last week. I think they're an emotional side, but it's a tough one to call.
It's surprising you went for the Cats. Let's look at mine. And I think Collingwood beat Adelaide in this first final. I like Hawthorn. I've liked them since the halfway mark of the year. I think Fremantle go through. So Collingwood up against Geelong. I feel like Geelong will get the job done. Brisbane, Hawthorn. That game would be in Brisbane. If it was here in Melbourne, I'd pick Hawthorn. But all the way through the Brisbane Lions winning. And Hoyney, this is one everyone waiting on.
Well, 3 out of 4 have decided that Brisbane and Geelong are going to wrap around in some shape or form. So, next Friday night is just absolutely enormous. And I've gone Hawthorn over GWS purely because, as we've spoken about all year, the defensive profile over the offensive profile. So going to stick with that. And then I think Collingwood are every chance on Thursday night against Adelaide, like the Hawthorn situation, what they're doing defensively. But I think the loser of Geelong and Brisbane still has the absolute skill set to be able to wrap back around. And Geelong's record, even over in Adelaide Oval, is incredibly strong anyway. So, no matter what happens on Friday, still going to go with Geelong and Brisbane.
So 3 on the Brisbane Lions, 1 on Geelong. So let's talk about the Gary Ayres medal. This is the best finals performer. Now, Gary Ayres, what a player he was in finals. He had some great attributes. He had the mullet, which was unbelievable. He also had the biggest calves you'd ever wanted. They're even bigger than my calves.
Even bigger than Lachie Neale's?
Bigger than Lachie Neale's. Could not wear skinny leg jeans, Gary Ayres. But I tell you what, he could play some football. So I like Hugh McCluggage because Brisbane, I picked them in the grand final, picked them to win. He is their number one midfielder at the moment. I just see him getting a lot of... Yes, he'll probably get tagged at some point, but he's a goal kicker. He's a big game performer. He did it in the grand final last season. His first half was outstanding, and I just feel like it is Hugh McCluggage's year. First All-Australian, and now a Norm Smith medal to go with it.
Yep, I'm with you, Brownie. I have him as well as my Gary Ayres medalist, and I think what we saw against Hawthorn was a little preview of what he can do in big games. He was the best on ground in that game to get them through, to get them in the top 4, and I think he has a massive finals campaign.
Yeah, well, it's hard not to pick a player from the team you expect is going to win the flag, and a lot is riding on that Geelong and Brisbane game, but given that I think Geelong will go all the way, I've gone with Max Holmes. I think he is clearly Geelong's best player. I think Bailey Smith is doing enough right now to draw enough attention away from Max that I think he's got the capacity to get off the leash, and if they are to win the Premiership, I don't think they can do it. They can't cover Max Holmes not playing well.
And he missed out on the Premiership last time.
Yeah, very cruel circumstances. Yeah, he actually got injured in last year's prelim as well against the same opposition, and in 2022 we knew internally this guy was a superstar, maybe hadn't quite exploded outside the 4 walls of the club, but it would be lovely to see him win that Premiership he deserves. But if they go all the way, I think it'll be largely because of Max Holmes.
There's only going to be one team in this final series who's going to tag. So it is going to be driven by the stars in this September campaign, and I'm going to go with Zach Bailey. I think Brisbane could be another team that is going to look back with a blessing in disguise piece. Lachie Neale going out, Zach Bailey coming in as a midfielder, and you've just unlocked something totally different. Yes, Lachie Neale's coming back in, but this guy's not going out of your midfield. He's ready to explode. He's had a career best season, and these type of players are the ones that get it done so often throughout a September campaign.
Okay, so some insight from the traders. Who are the players and clubs that we've loved to punt it on this year? And the number one punted on club this year has been Collingwood. No surprise there. Collingwood got the biggest probably supporter base in the competition. So the number one game was Collingwood up against Essendon on Anzac Day. And have a guess who the most punted on player was this year?
Starts with Nick Ends in Dacos, I reckon.
It is. So let's have a look at the top 5 punted on players this year. And there's no great surprise. Probably the only surprise was Christian Petrarca. I haven't had him in a lot of my betting this year. Yes, I've backed Dacos. I've backed Cameron Light Hoyney. I've backed Josh Dacos a fair bit. But Petrarca, I was a bit surprised about that one.
Yeah, that is a bit of a surprise. And it would be interesting to see the money that's come late for Jeremy Cameron as well, around that sort of 3 or 4 week period ago when we were looking at how many goals he might score in a game. We had the extra markets as well to go with that one, but he is such a reliable player. I am also surprised that Petrarca's in there. Probably less reliable than the rest of them in there.
You've been off Nick Dacos all season. How do you see his finals? Can Collingwood win a final series if he doesn't play well or if he gets tagged out of the game?
No, they can't, because they are a bit thin, unlike the rest of the of the finalists. But the best thing for Collingwood is that Nick is playing his best footy over the last 2 months. It's been his ball use in the first half of the season, bottom 10 kick in the competition. He's flying now with how he's actually using the ball, so that spells danger for everyone else and good signs for Collingwood.
Well, there is a market that you can bet on for the most clearances in the final. So you can look all the way through, you can think who's going to lay the most tackles, who's going to get the most disposals, all across the final series. And I like the clearance ranks for Nick Dacos. I think he spends a fair bit of time through the midfield. I think he is the one that gets the most clearances in the final series. If you look at the most reliable players for their teams and getting a whole lot of clearances, I think Nick Dacos is the one you want to look at for that market.
And the most punted on, 21 and 22 disposals. That's where the sweet spot is. So 3 of us for the grand final Premiership have gone for the Brisbane Lions. One outlier being Geelong. He barracks for Geelong. What a great play it was for Geelong. But that is our AFL Finals preview. Enjoy. Spring is in the air, and you know what that means. It is September, it is finals football, and I can't wait for it. With the in the back pocket crew, have a look at Hoyney. You look great.
There's your energy.
Yes, very good. Got to have good energy.
I'm up and about now after that
watching
intro.
TV, someone's flat, doesn't want to be there. You've got to have good energy. Got to start finals well. Get that first touch.
You're not flat, I can assure you. I can assure you after that intro. No, good to be here, Brownie.
Yes, Zach Tui.
Nathan Brown, also very good to be here. We've gotten rid of all the riffraff. This is when it gets exciting. There's no more dead rubber games and none of the weaker sides left.
And Kate McCarthy.
Yeah, good to be here. Do you have hay fever? Is that why you're saying spring's in the air, or are you just up and about for finals?
No, it doesn't feel like spring. It's still pretty cold in Melbourne at the moment. Very, very cold. Okay, let's talk about finals footy with the number one man.
Yeah, so we'll just slowly step through this, and so often we get asked, what's the difference between home and away footy and finals footy? And everyone goes to scoring and to pressure and to all these different areas. And the reality is, not too much of that actually changes. The one significant change in the game between finals footy and home and away footy is that it gets drawn into a chaos game over a control game. So what we mean by that, a chaos game, there's more ground balls available than what there are marks taken. So more ground balls won than marks taken. And a control game, there's more marks taken than balls won on the deck. Nice and simple.
Who came up with that?
I'll give credit to one of our guys back office, Christian Jolly. I won't take credit for that one, but I'm going to run with it though. I'm absolutely.
I like it though.
So just nice and simple. So over a 10-year period, home and away footy, 50% dead on. 50% of matches are control and 50% are chaos. Finals footy, 75% at chaos and 25% at control. And you have a look at it this year, it's gone to a whole other level this year, and that's mainly off the back of the significant unevenness in the competition. That when there's a blowout, there's going to be more marking and less ground ball taken. So far more controlled than chaos this year. But now we trim the fat. And now we just look at the 39 games that were played this year where it was top 8 v top 8. And what happened? Brace yourself for the ball to be on the deck. 2 out of every 3 games, when it's the best v the best, it is on the deck. It's not played in a controlled fashion. And then of those 26 matches, so when the ball is on the deck, the game is living in tightness for basically all those 26 matches. Only 6 games where it was a chaos game, where the best v the best, was there a margin of 20 plus points or more. So 20 of the 26, the game is under that 20-point barrier. And then you look at, the 8 teams in the competition, when the ball was in chaos against the best, how did you perform? And it is ridiculous how far clear they are of everyone else when it comes to the scoreboard, when the game is played against the best in a chaos fashion. 5 games Geelong have played against the best in a chaos fashion. They've lost 2 of them, only lost 2 of them by 4 points and 6 points. And then the other 3, they blew the opposition away. So if you're a Geelong supporter, if you're thinking about Geelong for the flag, like I think a lot of us are, that should give you a lot of confidence for what they could do this September.
And we saw your finals bracket earlier. Tell us then, why have you selected Brisbane as your favourite? Going off that data, and I know that's not everything, but why do you think the Lions then are the team to get it done?
I might regret this. I'll be staggered if the Premiership comes from outside of Geelong or Brisbane. Ooh. So I think you can mount Brisbane's profile overall, and then you just got those games against the best where they rise to another occasion, like they did against Geelong, against Collingwood, against a few of these other teams. Their profile as a collective is bulletproof. Geelong's profile against the best is the second best in the comp, but if you're just bracing, and I'll never forget this, like that final against Port Adelaide last year. Port Adelaide Geelong first final. It was hard to mount a case for Geelong off the back of Port winning 6 in a row, and we started looking at this, and Geelong were number 1 in the chaos aspect, and Port were 18. It was like, okay, how's this going to play? And you're watching the first 20 minutes of that final. The ball's on the deck. Suited Geelong. Chaos. It's a different game. So
when you come up with these theories, and obviously there's a lot of data backing it up, and then you put it all in for this year, and you come up with the 26 and 13 again, how excited do you get that I'm pretty smart, I'm smarter than the average guy, and that backs it up?
there is a lot of red cordial that gets popped at champion other offices when something like this comes up and you go, geez, that's good, isn't it? Well, and we're going to run with this for the next 4 weeks.
It is uncharacteristically interesting from you, I have to say. But with both of these sides, it's just who clicks because they've got match winners, don't they, at either end of the ground. So it has to be one of these two teams.
And it's why these two are so dangerous, because they've got so many of these small and ground ball players right across the ground to maximise the chaos aspect of finals.
When you've got a lot of data, you make the right decisions. When you don't have any data at the start of the season, you make predictions. Sometimes those predictions come true, sometimes they don't. Clubs go to work on them over the pre-season, don't they? They caught them on the hop last year, so they'll be going, OK, how do we stop Hawthorn? A lot of their game plan will be built around let's stop Hawthorn, which wasn't the focus last year.
Their line of 14.5, that's pretty steep. That's a lot of wins. They won 14 games last year.
Yeah. I thought we both said probably under.
Yeah, I think we did.
Got that one wrong, first up?
I think
care to join in or say anything?
The rate of which
I
don't think when we did any of these predictions, we would think that a team that won, I think, 14 games would miss out on finals. So not to make a cop-out for us, but this has been the most games you've had to win in a season to make it into the top 8. I think still with that under, probably saying that they're in the bottom half of the top 8 is where they finished. But, yeah, probably got that one.
I think sides did figure them out, like we said in the first half of the season, and they clicked a few things, changed a few things. Their back half of the season has been pretty good.
Yeah, defensively has been their asset all season. Offensively, it's sort of, it has been a bit of a concern, and is still a bit of a concern there as well.
I know we said Geelong and Brisbane clearly seem like the two favourites for good reason. Is there anybody outside of those two, and maybe put Adelaide aside as well? Is there anyone in that bottom half that could feasibly cause damage?
Oh, Hawthorn definitely. It's just how much damage can they do from 8th. Like if they were starting in 4th, it would be a totally different conversation. Starting in 8th, it's going to make it hard.
Adelaide finished on top. Did we see that coming? I think Adelaide can play finals football. So when you bring in 3 seasoned players like Cumming, you've got Neil Bullen, who's a very good player, and Peatling, who's a very good user, can go forward, can go back. And added to that, Rankin didn't play much last year. Thilthorpe's going to be bigger and stronger. Only played a handful of games last year. So I think Adelaide can improve. I think they'll be one of the big improvers this year.
I think they get past that 11.5 line. My concern is they only won 8 games last year, so that's a big jump sort of in improvement in a year. But I think the way that they've been able to craft their list, Thilthorpe back, I'm big on him. Only played sort of a few games in the handful at the end of last year. I think he's going to make huge improvements to this team.
$26 at the start of the season they were to win the Premiership. They finished on top of the ladder, but a lot of people think Collingwood are going to knock them off.
Yeah, I think Collingwood have every chance. They deserve to be favourite, but you just, and we've spoken about it for the last week and a bit, you can't undersell the loss of Rankin. Like, he is their second best player. We just spoke about chaos games and what finals are. It suits a player like him, and he's not going to be there likely for the whole September campaign.
Kate Barracks of the Brisbane Lions, let's see what you said about them.
I think they're coming back. I think there's no need to really replace Joe with the sense of the smalls that they have down there that can play a very different way to how Joe played. I think Chris Fagan doesn't let that group get ahead of themselves.
Eka?
When we saw Eka, I think he has to be more reliable. He simply has to be. If he's not, they'll look elsewhere. And I think...
Can he play the Joe Danaher role?
I don't think there's any need for him to play the Joe Danaher role. I think he can play the role he played last year, and they focus on a bigger body down there that maybe doesn't have the height but leads out of the square and draws defenders' attention. So I think that's how they target it.
You've had a good year. You've had a really good year.
I think the player that I was thinking of was probably Logan Morris without knowing it. He's played that role and he's probably done it better than what Eric Hipwood did it the year before. I still think that after watching Hawthorn and Brisbane a couple of weeks ago in that last game of round 24 that we saw, I think they just have too many weapons to stop. And yes, I am a Lions supporter. That is completely neutral for me. I just do not see when Cam Rayner pops up, Zach Bailey pops up, Jasper Fletcher off the half-back, Harris Andrews, Ryan Lester, and then you've got Hugh McCluggage, Lachie Neale comes back, Jared Berry potentially. Like, how do you stop that many weapons from hitting the scoreboard in big games.
And it's probably why Geelong are their number one threat, because, as I said before, they're going to be the only ones in this final series that have two weapons in their arsenal that they can just go with O'Connor and Mullen, that we're going to try and lock away two of your stars, which makes for Friday night intriguing.
I do feel like Lachie Neale is somewhat flying under the radar here when we talk about big game performers and you talk about the game being in chaos. And when I think of a chaos game, the guys that stand out are guys who are clean. And Lachie Neale and Tuke Miller actually is the two that I remember playing against as a player and thinking, gee, like, it's really impressive what they do in congestion. And you can look at the raw numbers, but the eye test tells me that when things are hot and a ball needs to be picked up clean, there isn't any better than Lachie Neale in that aspect.
And go back to his prelim final last year, game of the season, 12, 13 clearances in that game. He was clean, he was brilliant around stoppage. So, coming back from injury, he's set hopefully for a good campaign.
Most marks for the final series. I think we've both got Harris Andrews. He's had multiple marks, double digits this season. I just feel like they play the three finals, they play the grand final, they'll chip it around. He won't go to their number one forward probably, which allows him that intercept range.
Yeah, and I feel confident going with Harris Andrews because I've seen teams all year try and man him up, put a player on him that can hurt him offensively, and he just finds ways to impose himself on the game. And he's going to have a game where he takes 20 marks. He loves spoiling a little bit too much for that, but over the course of a whole final series, I feel like he's a pretty safe bet.
Most goals?
Yeah, I'm going Logan Morris. I think his ability to hit the scoreboard in big games. We saw him kick 6 against the Pies. He likes big games and big opportunities, and he played last year, yes, but didn't have the role that he's going to have this year. And I think he rises to that occasion, and I think he's able to hit the scoreboard more than most. The only threat, clearly, Jeremy Cameron. Good luck stopping him if he gets on a run in a finals game, but I like him for $10 as well. He's a nice little price for that.
Fremantle Dockers, they did it the hard way last week. They had to beat the Western Bulldogs to play finals. What do we think pre-season?
The introduction of Bolton into this side, he's the cream on top. If he's playing in a side that will dominate more games than not, which Freo will at least do that, I think we'll get back to peak Richmond Bolton this year. I fancy him to be all-Australian calibre.
They've always had a problem kicking goals, Fremantle, but with the introduction of Josh Tracy last year as a bona fide maybe superstar in 2 to 3 years' time, he doesn't miss, he attacks the footy hard, he's exactly what Fremantle need, and if he can have a big season, doesn't need to kick 50 or 60, just needs to kick 40 and compete, then those other smaller players, they go to work and they're going to be hard to stop. Bang on for the Dockers, there we were, and the Cats, you're very strong on them as well.
Yeah, well, I feel like predicting the Cats is an easy out these days. They always make it late in finals. But in terms of Freo, they got over that line we were talking about, probably not in spectacular fashion. They strike me as a side. I perceive them this year how I perceived Adelaide, is that they underperformed the year before and the list should be much better. So I think trajectory for them is they look at next year and have a proper crack at a Premiership. I don't think they can win it this year, but it constitutes improvement.
Let's have a look at what we said about the Cats pre-season.
Well, it's hard to imagine any team could recover from the loss of Tui and Hawkins. But I just have so much faith in Geelong to do what they've been doing for 10 or 15 years. They're getting an extraordinary player in Vaz. He's had a full and uninterrupted pre-season by and large. So if they can get him for most of this season, he's going to be a difference maker. Danger spends a lot of time forward, which keeps him fresh for when he is needed in the midfield. And he will be needed in the midfield, especially come the end of the season.
Wasn't all beer and Skittles though, was it? At the start of the season they got belted by Geelong at Marvel Stadium. There's a few question marks, but since then they've been unbelievable.
Yeah, but there's just never any need to panic with Geelong. And look, I am biased. I obviously played there for a long time, but there was a period last year where I think Geelong lost 7 from 7 or 7 out of 8, and everybody thought they were shot to pieces. A couple of minutes to go on a prelim, they're up. So this is kind of just what they do. They do feel like a safe bet leading into any season, and until they give me a reason to stop backing them to go deep in September, I'm just going to keep backing them.
Yeah, and a player that we agree that we are both backing is Bailey Smith, the man that you mentioned to be a difference maker for Geelong. We've taken him for the most disposals in the final series. I sort of looked at him and thought, if you're looking at these markets, you want to either look at a team that you think either loses first week and gets the extra game and you think can go all the way. I have the Lions beating them in the first week, but then them going all the way to play the grand final. So I think Bailey Smith finds a fair bit of the footy in that time.
Yeah, you could easily see him playing 3 or 4 games and having 35 in each game. I think that's very much in his capacity. And then you look at the tackles, and well, when you look at tackles this season, Tom Atkins has absolutely blown the record up for this. Chaos games suit him down to a T. I've made this point on this show before. If I'm going into a big finals game with 100,000 people at the G, Tom Atkins is the first player I'm picking because you know what you're going to get from him. And I will be stunned if he doesn't near enough hit double-digit tackles every game he plays for the rest of September.
And the big bonus for Geelong has been Shannon Neal. So obviously you've got to take care of Jeremy Cameron, who's a superstar. But all of a sudden, Shannon Neal taking 3 marks within the first 5 minutes of a game, kicking 3 goals. All of a sudden, the opposition like, wow, we need to do something about this guy, which allows Jeremy Cameron to play better football. He has been what Tom Hawkins was, but a little bit better mover.
He has a huge role to play Friday night. Harris Andrews tore him apart down at Geelong in round 15. So Harris Andrews will go straight to him on Friday night again. He needs to be more competitive than what he was down in Geelong. And if he is, that forward line then functions like it has all year to pose a threat to Brisbane.
Is he going better than what they thought? I'll ask you and you, obviously you've been down there. Is he going better or ahead of where they thought?
Oh, from the outside, absolutely. I mean, to kick 40 plus goals this season, could they have actually expected that? I'm not sure. We didn't. So
outstanding at developing talent. So he did his time in the VFL. He is not just being drafted. He's been around for a little while. So timed it perfectly from the Cats.
Nice work. Well, that's been a look back at the season that was, and then also next week we'll be back next Thursday with a full preview of the AFL finals, all the markers, the kicks, the handballs, everything, and Hoyney.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.